Something is happening behind the scenes. Quiet meetings, global alliances, religious councils, all moving toward a single year, 2026. You won't hear it on the evening news, but prophecy has already revealed it. The same power that ruled during the Dark Ages, the system that once controlled kings and dictated conscience, is preparing to rise again. And this time, it won't come with swords and armies. It will come through laws, through unity, through the cry for peace and safety. Rome is preparing for they call it the Jubilee, the year of hope, the year of unity. But heaven calls it the setup, because when Rome moves, the world follows. Behind the beautiful speeches about faith, climate, and humanity's healing lies an agenda to restore the influence that prophecy said would return before Christ comes. The dragon gives power to the beast, and the beast gives orders to the nations. And who stands in the way of this plan? Those who still honor the commandments of God, who still keep the seventh-day Sabbath, who still declare that salvation belongs to Christ alone. That's why the message is clear. Adventists are the target, not because they are perfect, not because they are better, but because they carry a truth the enemy hates, a truth that exposes the counterfeit worship system rising again. When the world unites under the banner of Sunday observance, when Christian nationalism merges with global religion, the Sabbath will stand as a divine protest, a holy reminder that God alone is creator and lawgiver. History is about to repeat itself. The same system that changed God's law, that persecuted those who refused to bow, is being reborn in our generation. And 2026 is not the end. It's the beginning of a worldwide movement to redefine worship, unity, and morality. Rome's influence is stretching across denominations, politics, and nations. Even Protestants are returning to the Mother Church, forgetting the Reformation, and embracing the same errors they once escaped. The Bible warned that all the world would wonder after the beast, and we are watching that prophecy unfold. But here's what they don't realize. You cannot silence a people who are filled with the Spirit of truth. You cannot legislate away loyalty to the Creator. The same Spirit that empowered Daniel to stand in Babylon will empower the remnant to stand now. And when that final decree comes, when the Sabbath is challenged and conscience is tested, those who know their God will stand strong and do exploits. So let the world prepare. Let Rome strategize. Let laws be written and alliances form. God's people are not afraid, because when Rome plans, heaven prepares. The louder the world speaks lies, the clearer God's truth will shine. 2026 may be their year of unity, but for the faithful, it will be the year of awakening, the year of decision. This is not the time for silence. It's the time for spiritual boldness. You are not called to blend in with Babylon. You are called to stand apart. The real test isn't coming someday. It's forming right now, law by law, alliance by alliance. So strengthen your faith, guard your heart, and anchor your soul in God's word. Because when the laws of the land rise against the law of God, the remnant will rise too. The question isn't whether Rome is preparing, the question is, are you? Because prophecy is not waiting for approval. It's unfolding before your eyes. And when the storm hits, the world will know that God still has a people who will not bow, will not bend, and will not break. Stand firm. The same power that was faithful in the fire will be faithful in the final hour. Rome may prepare for 2026, but heaven is preparing a people for eternity. The targeted truth. Why Adventists stand in the way. The world is shifting toward a forced unity, one built not on truth but on compliance. And in that movement, a remnant people still stand apart. They refuse to bend the knee to the decrees of man when they conflict with the commandments of God. These are the Sabbath keepers, the ones the world calls strange, stubborn, and outdated, but prophecy has declared it. Adventists will one day stand in the direct line of fire, not because of who they are, but because of what they represent. The Sabbath truth is not just a doctrine. It is a banner of allegiance, a seal of loyalty in the final conflict between Christ and the dragon. For centuries, Rome has sought to reclaim her lost influence. She has worked in silence in diplomacy and in religion, weaving a web of unity that looks holy but hides control. Every ecumenical alliance, every Sunday observance push, every global peace initiative under religious tones is not about faith, it's about power. And those who keep the true Sabbath stand as living rebukes to that power. You see, the Sabbath declares that only God has the right to define worship, time and rest. That alone threatens the authority of every man-made system that dares to replace the divine law. The reason Adventists stand in the way isn't pride, it's prophecy. Revelation 12:17 says, "The dragon was wroth with the woman, and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments of God, and have the testimony of Jesus Christ." That war isn't fought with swords, but with laws, media, and manipulation. It's a war of ideas, where truth becomes labeled as hate, and obedience becomes viewed as rebellion. But those who stand for God's commandments will not be moved, because they know the Sabbath isn't about a day, it's about who you worship. The Sunday law will not come overnight. It is being prepared gradually, clothed in the language of peace, unity, and moral restoration. The world will be told it's for the common good. The nations will unite under the influence of Rome's spiritual charm, and Protestant America will lend her voice to enforce the same power she once protested. That is why Adventists, who hold to the unchanging truth of the Ten Commandments, will soon find themselves out of step with the majority. And when that happens, the remnant will not blend in, they will shine brighter. God has always used a minority to preserve his truth. In the days of Noah, one family held the line. In the days of Elijah, one prophet faced the fury of a nation. In the days of Daniel, 3 young men stood when the world bowed. And today, God calls his people to do the same, to stand when the decree is passed, when worship is legislated, when truth is criminalized. For the remnant, the question will not be what's popular, but what's right in the eyes of God. Adventists are not the target because of arrogance. They are the target because they carry a message that cannot be silenced, the everlasting gospel, calling all nations to worship the Creator of heaven and earth. That message is the final warning to a deceived world, a message that exposes false systems and uplifts divine truth. And the enemy knows that once that message goes out with power, his dominion ends. So yes, Rome is preparing, the stage is being set, the world is being conditioned, but heaven is preparing too. Angels are being commissioned, faith is being refined, and the saints are being sealed. The final conflict is not about control, it's about character. Not about politics, it's about prophecy. And when the storm breaks, the true people of God will not run, hide, or compromise. They will stand calm, unshaken and radiant, with divine conviction, because they know the same God who stood with Daniel in Babylon will stand with them in the final hour. The return of the beast, prophecy in motion. The world is watching history repeat itself, but few recognize it. Behind the scenes of politics, religion, and global alliances, prophecy is in motion. What the prophets saw in visions thousands of years ago is unfolding before our very eyes. The beast of Revelation, the system that once ruled through fear, deception, and persecution, is returning. It no longer wears the garments of medieval dominance, but it walks again in modern robes. Diplomacy, unity, and peace. This is not fiction, it is the silent fulfillment of prophecy as foretold in Revelation 13. And I saw one of his heads, as it were, wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed. And all the world wondered after the beast. For centuries, Rome's political power was crippled. Its dominance was wounded by the Protestant Reformation and the rise of liberty that separated church from state. But the wound was never fatal. It was temporary. Today we see that healing in plain sight. The once wounded beast now stands at the center of world affairs again. World leaders, nations, and even Protestant churches now look to her for moral guidance and global solutions. What was once considered the antithesis of freedom is now being hailed as the voice of unity. And yet beneath the gentle tone of peace lies the same unchanging desire to reign, to rule, and to redefine worship according to human authority rather than divine law. Prophecy tells us that the beast will not rise through open tyranny first, but through deception. It will speak of morality while undermining God's law. It will promote unity while silencing dissent. It will promise peace while preparing for persecution. The enemy understands that the world won't bow to darkness if it looks like evil, but it will kneel if that darkness is disguised as light. And that's exactly how the beast system returns. Not through war, but through worship. The battle will not be fought on political platforms, but in the human heart, over allegiance, whether to the commandments of God or the traditions of men. The rise of Christian nationalism, the union of church and state, and the global emphasis on Sunday rest are not random events. They are part of a calculated, prophetic progression. The world is being conditioned to see disobedience to man-made religious laws as rebellion and obedience to God's true Sabbath as extremism. Prophecy is not just about symbols and timelines. It's about loyalty. The mark of the beast is not a microchip. It's a mindset. It's the final test of who we worship when the laws of man contradict the law of heaven. The return of the beast is not meant to frighten those who belong to God. It's meant to awaken them. The remnant are not to run in fear, but to rise in faith. When the systems of the world unite under one banner, God's people must unite under one name, the name of the Lamb. Because while the beast gathers nations, heaven is sealing saints. While deception spreads like wildfire, the truth of God's word is going forth with power. And though prophecy declares that the beast will make war against the saints, it also declares their victory, and they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. So as Rome prepares for 2026 and prophecy accelerates toward its climax, remember what looks like peace is preparation, what sounds like unity is rehearsal, and what feels like progress is often prophecy disguised. The beast is returning, not to conquer by sword, but to control through worship. But God's people will not be deceived. They will recognize the signs, they will hold the line, and they will proclaim with courage that no matter who rules the nations, Christ alone is King. The year of deception, 2026, and the great reset of worship. The world is being primed for a spiritual reset. While most people are watching politics, economics, and technology, the real battle is being waged over worship. The year 2026 has become a quiet rallying point for global powers, religious and political, to unify humanity under a single moral and spiritual banner. Words like peace, unity, and restoration are being spoken from the highest pulpits and podiums. But behind that language lies something deeper and far more dangerous. A reset of worship, a deception so subtle that even many believers will mistake it for revival. Prophecy warned us that the final movements would be rapid ones. The world would long for stability after chaos, and in that hunger for peace, it would accept anything that promises order. The Great Reset is not merely an economic or digital plan, it is a spiritual agenda. Its ultimate goal is not just to unite banks or nations, but to unite worship under one false system. In 2026, with its global religious gatherings, interfaith summits, and calls for a universal day of rest, is pointing directly toward that prophetic convergence. The beast power is not sleeping. It's preparing. The false prophet is not silent. It's preaching. And the dragon is not hiding. It's speaking through systems of influence that shape public opinion and policy. This deception will not come as an outright attack on Christianity. It will come as a counterfeit of it. It will appear moral, compassionate, and holy. It will talk about restoring families, saving the planet, and bringing the world together in worship. But the worship it promotes will not honor the Creator. It will honor the creature, the Sabbath. The one commandment that points to God as the Creator will be replaced with a counterfeit rest day, a man-made institution disguised as divine truth. The world will be told that this change is harmless, even beneficial. But prophecy tells another story. All the world wondered after the beast. 2026 could very well mark the beginning of this global synchronization, a moment when religious and political leaders push for a common spiritual agenda. It will seem like progress, but it will be the perfect trap. For when church and state unite under a common cause, freedom of conscience dies, and when the masses accept false worship in the name of unity, the stage is set for the enforcement of the mark of the beast. This deception will appeal to emotion and patriotism. It will call for loyalty in the name of peace, and those who refuse to bow will be seen not as faithful, but as enemies of order. This is why the truth of God's law must be proclaimed with clarity and courage. The Sabbath commandment, rooted in creation itself, is God's seal upon His people. It is the reminder that time, rest, and worship belong to Him alone. The deception of 2026 will challenge that seal. It will test who truly believes that God's word is unchangeable. Many will fall away because they built their faith on comfort, not conviction. But those who stand on truth will shine with divine boldness, declaring, "We ought to obey God rather than men." The year of deception is not meant to scare us. It is meant to prepare us. Every prophecy, every warning, and every truth is God's mercy, calling His people to be awake. While the world celebrates unity, heaven calls for separation. Come out of her, my people. The great reset of worship will demand compromise, but the remnant will not yield. They will refuse the counterfeit rest and hold fast to the Creator's Sabbath, even when the world turns against them. So as 2026 approaches, remember this: deception will look like devotion, and false worship will sound like revival. But those anchored in God's word will see through the disguise. The enemy may plan a reset, but God is preparing a remnant. And when the world bows to the image, they will stand in the fire, unafraid, knowing the same God who delivered Daniel's friends will deliver them once again. The image of the beast. When church and state unite again, when prophecy speaks of the image of the beast, it warns of something far more dangerous than any political system or religious order. It speaks of a union that defies heaven itself. It is the moment when the church, clothed in piety, joins hands with the state to enforce worship by law. Revelation 13 describes it with precision. He had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. This is not ancient history. It is a prophecy being built before our eyes. The very powers that once separated church from state are now reuniting under the banner of moral reform and religious revival. But this time it's not just about politics. It's about control of conscience. History is repeating itself. During the Dark Ages, Rome reigned supreme not only in faith, but in governance. The papal throne dictated to kings and emperors, and dissent was considered rebellion against God. That system fell, wounded by the rise of liberty and the Reformation's light. But prophecy said the wound would heal, and when it does, the image of the beast would appear. That image is not Rome itself, but its reflection, The very same spirit of religious tyranny revived in another form. And where will it rise? In the very nation that once promised freedom of conscience, the United States of America. When America, the land of liberty, begins to enforce laws that compel religious observance, it will have created the image of the beast. The First Amendment's wall of separation between church and state will crumble under the weight of moral necessity. The people will cry out for a return to faith in public life, unaware that what they are building is the very machinery of persecution. The same hands that once signed freedom into law will sign it away in the name of righteousness. The union of church and state will be painted as patriotic, spiritual, and even holy, but heaven will call it what it is: idolatry. The image of the beast will speak through legislation. It will cause through policy. It will demand through the power of persuasion and punishment. It will not force the world into atheism, but into a counterfeit Christianity. The commandments of men will replace the commandments of God, and the majority will applaud it as a moral victory. And when the Sunday law rises, those who honor the true Sabbath will once again stand as they did in ages past, accused, misunderstood, and targeted. Yet in that fiery trial, the faith of the remnant will be purified like gold. The world will see a strange paradox: a nation founded on liberty enforcing worship, a church claiming holiness while promoting oppression, a people preaching peace while sowing persecution. But none of this will surprise the faithful. They have read the end from the beginning. They know that the image of the beast cannot exist without willing participants, religious leaders who trade truth for influence, and citizens who trade conviction for comfort. And when the decree comes, the true followers of Christ will not bend to the image of man, because they are conformed to the image of God. This final union of church and state will test every soul. It will separate the genuine from the false, the faithful from the fearful. Those who live by convenience will crumble under pressure, but those who live by conviction will stand tall. Just as the 3 Hebrews stood in Babylon's fiery furnace, God's end-time people will refuse to worship the image no matter the cost. They will not bow to false unity, for their allegiance belongs to a higher kingdom. When church and state unite again, the beast's image will rise, but so will God's remnant. The dragon may roar, the laws may threaten, the world may unite in deception, but the faithful will not fall, for they follow the Lamb wherever he goes, knowing that beyond the chaos and control, Christ still reigns, and his kingdom will never be shaken.